Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today. In media and entertainment, a data problem can derail an entire production day. A broken pipeline, a file that won't transcode, assets scattered across silos with no clear path to the deliverable. Today's conversation is about what that actually looks like in practice and what's changing. My name is Josh, and today I'm joined by Paul Honrud and Greg Shiff, with Olivier Rivard guiding our discussion. Paul is the Chief Product Officer at Diskover Data and a veteran of data management with over 35 years of experience, including founding data frameworks. Greg is a staff architect at Dell, where he spent nearly 8 years working directly with studios and broadcasters on unstructured data storage strategy, giving him a front row seat to how the industry's biggest storage challenges actually play out in the field. In this conversation, we'll cover the data headaches hitting studios and post houses right now, what AI actually looks like day to day for teams managing media storage, and how organizations are finally starting to see real ROI from getting their data under control. I hope you enjoy this discussion.
So my first question for you guys is what's the biggest data headache you hear from studios and post houses right now?
Yeah, I can jump in on that one, and
Please, yeah, go for it.
I'll go kind of a real world story. And I think the way the gentleman put it to me, this is a real regional broadcaster out of the Northeast U.S. And basically he said, I come in and what causes my day to go sideways? And a lot of times it's because of a data problem blocking a deliverable, right? So they're trying to get some deliverable out and something breaks the pipeline and his day goes sideways right away because he's got to try to troubleshoot why it broke the pipeline. And a lot of times these assets are shared across kind of multiple workflows, from game footage to signage to marketing things. So a fundamental file problem starts the day in a fire drill.
And this is because these, for you, Paul, with this particular broadcaster is like having, they're getting the wrong material, like an asset needs to go to that is for delivery and it's just like the wrong thing, or is it that they're pulling other assets from different data silos and it's just like not um they're just getting
Yeah,
the
I
wrong
can.
files? Is that ultimately what it is? Like, I mean, it should be the English version, it's the French version, or is it something more complicated than that?
It actually can be something more simple than that. Or if you think about it, incoming QC, I'll give you like a simple example. There could be freelancers in the workflow, and they thought it would be cute to send a file with an emoji in the file name, and it breaks something right away. That's a fairly simple thing. You may get two files, and one is possibly transcoding, no problem, and the other one's not. What's wrong with this file that the other one's not? They look the same in that. So digging in a little bit more on the attributes of why something's breaking, it could be something just as simple as that the production user just throws up their hands, and you actually wind up with an IT ticket and an engineering grade resource thrown on the problem, because at this point in time, the clock is ticking on making the deliverable or not.
Totally get it. Um, I mean, for myself, the one of the big problems I still see is like data silos. It's the same problem that we've seen for forever, right? Um, and once upon a time, the answer was, well, buy this shiny storage system from Dell, which you obviously should, a power scale or object scale system, and put all of your data there. But oftentimes that's just it's not realistic to do anymore. And there's maybe some very good reasons why you have these different silos. Maybe there's, one group for data, privacy reasons or for whatever it is. I guess, M&E, we don't have to worry about things like HIPAA compliance quite as much, but certainly if you need to, data security is a huge deal, right? So you may not be able to give access to everyone of data. And so then how can you still get your work done? And this is where I think, we talk about solutions. Well, yes, having centralized shared storage is a solution, and it certainly still is a critical component to it. But then having visibility across those silos of data so that the data can maybe stay where it is, but now I'm creating, to borrow a term from, our the data analysis world, a data product so that you can see things across silos and um, be able to dig in there. I mean that's the solution I'm seeing to these problems.
Yeah, and absolutely. Other problems, things that are perfect. If it's self-contained within one silo and 100% managed within the silo, then the exception handling goes down. But as soon as you need to cross silos or workflows, something valid in one silo may not be valid in the next silo. Um, so absolutely concur with your point there, Greg.
Totally. And you can do like one of my big studio customers does and just have hard links everywhere. Which if you're a file system nerd, you know how that this gives you hives. But whatever, it solves a workflow problem, and so it's a what they need. But there you go.
Yeah, quite commonly used. I call it the iPod view of the file system, right? I just want to store my songs once, but I want a hard link by genre or artist. Not an uncommon technique.
I mean, it is what it is, and it comes down to because file systems, file storage is primarily being accessed by like humans looking at data. And so they want to see that one view of everything versus like an object storage that is being accessed by systems. And they don't care where everything lives because there's some, layer above tracking it. So if we can make our file storage a little smarter, that's becomes interesting.
Yeah,
But I
well,
digress.
that reminds me of a lesson I learned early on from somebody heavily into file-based workflows and visual effects, and the basic comment was, "Do you know what the problem is with file systems?" And the answer is humans. So if you didn't have humans on the file system, everything would run good. But unfortunately, there's humans on the file system.
I know we're living in the AI future, but I still like humans and I want humans involved in my production process. I think that humans making these I mean, what is media, whether we're talking broadcast TV or cinematic production or episodic, it is this grand human artistic endeavor. Yes, there's a commercial aspect to it as well, but like it's a bunch of people looking to like make this artistic vision come to light. And that for me is one of the things that's really exciting about all this. So that is a very long-winded way of saying I want humans on the file system. I think
Uh,
that's good, but let's make them more effective.
Absolutely.
And it's a good segue to my second question. Talking about humans and now AI, everyone's talking about AI, but what does AI actually look like day to day for someone managing media storage and data? Because we had humans that were creating data, now we have AI in the mix. How do you see that going in the future?
Are we in the happy timeline or the Black Mirror timeline? I think um, I will describe, because this is an informal podcast format, my own pet peeve about AI at the moment is just because I'm on my way towards becoming an old man and I get to be grumpy, is that get so many long written emails and other communications that are so clearly been produced by AI, that is about 10 pages longer than it needs to be, and I'm never going to read it. So I just, that person has put a prompt into AI, which has generated a long bit of text, which I then copy and paste back into AI and like condense back down to the prompt that originally came into it. And then I don't even read that, but that's neither here nor there. In terms of like day to day, I see the value here, and this is a thing at I've seen the prototype. Can we talk about this at Discover of
Yep.
the ability to like chat at your data, right? To have an LLM that's scanned your data already and say, "Hey man, tell me all the video files that are taking up space." In that natural language way, and have it be like, "Broop," or, "Hey, I need all the video assets for, the show." Maybe you don't even know the name of the show, blah 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 blah, and oh yeah, it kind of comes through, and you know, I mean, the challenge is that sometimes those things aren't 100% accurate, but like, I've
Yeah.
realized that as a human, I'm not 100% accurate anyway, so maybe it's good enough. I don't know. What do you think, Paul?
Oh, first of all, I think we're blessed to have Olivier on the call because he's very forward thinking AI front and the way he automates his day. And it's sort of our brainchild behind the ask your data about your data. So I think that is super powerful. I want to be able to do that, but it relies on a priori knowledge, right? I need to know what the question is to ask, right? So that is a good, and it's super powerful, right? And from there, it's amazing where you can go. The second part of the equation is if your data could talk, what would it tell you? Can I use AI to bubble up inefficiencies for me to find these things that are going to break the workflow before they break the workflow? Combing through somebody's closet or somebody's garage and finding these things before they actually impede workflow is the second part of it. So I'm super excited about the possibilities, but I'm going to defer it over to Olivier because he thinks like 3 steps ahead of me.
Yeah, what have
Yeah,
you seen? Come on, yeah. Moderator, tell us what you're thinking.
so yeah, the way I work, I've been changing for me for the last year. Right now, mostly I'm between calls, I'm talking to agents to do some of the work for me, but I still need to review everything that the AI is doing, but I can actually produce a lot more efficiently. And I think the important part is providing context. But the kind of job that I'm doing is like interacting with either Jira or communication in Slack. So it's mostly text-based content. But I'm curious from your perspective, do you see the future where we'll have agents and mostly chat experience, or we still need some kind of dashboard or visualization platform or native application that can actually consume this data? Yeah.
I think that
Okay.
that's a generational question. I think that for all of us who are, I'm going to go so far as to say over 25 years old, and I'm well over 25 years old, just barely, um, who are used to using computers in the way that we use them are going to expect to be able to use them that way moving forward. And I could certainly see, in the same way that like my kids interact with everything as though it were like a phone or an iPad or something, they that's the way their brains work. I could see this revolution in how we interact with our technology, but it's going to take a generational change before that happens, I believe. Now, if we want to tie this back to M&E, I think that those kinds of checks are going to eliminate that pain point that Paul talked about at the very beginning, where, the day goes sideways because of some data problem. Because if your machines are smart enough to maybe catch that so it just doesn't happen. So I think it's going to revolutionize things like, QCing of assets and, making sure that the right set of assets are packaged together for whatever production you're doing or whatever it is. I mean, that seems to me those are things that humans, one, don't like to do and generally do pretty poorly. So I can see that really changing. But I think that those tools, I mean, that's going to be an interesting thing at NAB this year. I'm going to be curious to see what those applications are, to see if there's some interesting, use cases. Because in a way, it's like it's not super sexy, but it's like super sexy. You know what I mean? Right? If that's your pain point.
So I have some strong beliefs on there, and then sometimes you got to like maybe look yourself in the mirror and question your beliefs. But I think it's a hybrid, and I'll tell you why. AI doesn't provide in file-based workflows. You have stuff going down. Think of it as a production line. You've got XYZ coordinates. The robot picks up from here and it moves it here, right? So contextual awareness and things around it. Where are the other relatives in my environment? I think are tougher to do that. So I see it as a hybrid. I see it every day, and I don't think you're going to have a chat experience with. Um, I need to submit this file to this translate location. Oh, and by the way, this file is located at /mount /projects /Spider-Man /whatever, and then the name of the file is this, and this, right? I just don't see it. People are just going to go click on the thing. And that's what I mean by contextual awareness. Um, yeah, I see it as a hybrid, and I think the one I always reference is look at what Google Drive, what Google's doing with Drive. it's got traditional AI, file management interface integrated with AI for something here and below, contextually from here and below, or compare this to that, or these two data sets to this, or go do the grunt work. Find me if I've got all the files referenced in an EDL, right? Like, okay, well, where's the EDL? Well, let me tell you again, it's slash mount slash up, blah, 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 blah,
No,
blah,
no,
blah,
yeah,
blah.
clearly we're not there yet.
Oh, we're
Uh,
not going to do that. Oh, and then all the files. Yeah, okay, yeah. Spit it back out there. You talk to me where all those files are located. Yeah, it's not gonna. It's for me. It's like, and it is probably a generational thing. It's a hybrid.
I think it's gonna be this. All right, we're like way off topic, but that's okay. This is the thing. It is gonna be like today. There are millions, billions of people who use computers who have never touched a command line, don't know what a command line is, have never heard of like, a man page in their life.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of people who like live and die by that or, use it when you need to or what have you. And could this end up ultimately in some sort of distant future in the happy timeline, not the Black Mirror timeline, where yeah, vast majority of people, nobody actually touches a computer to do any of that. You maybe you think or look or talk, whatever the interface is, I don't know, with that computer for the data, and it just sort of knows. And then there's some of us that actually have to go in and manually interact with things. Of course, we're
So,
nowhere near there yet, but these are the
so
sorts of tools that people are starting to think about to build. And I think media often leads the way in those discussions. So to your point, Paul, yeah, we're not going to say, yeah, I need the EDL that's in slash mount slash prod slash, da 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 da. But, it might be, pull up the EDL for, whatever, choose your show, season 1, episode 1, done.
so there's last time I checked, Emacs and VI are still around. Um, uh,
I
but
I love VI. It always makes me feel way more clever than I actually am to use it.
but I just in my own organization, you can go to something like Claude and it's got a nice fancy UI. But one of the guys on our platform engineering team uses the Claude command line UI uh, or the command line interface to it. It generates the same information. It generates the same results. So I think it comes down to a comfort zone of humans for some period of time. And I don't know what that period of time is. And probably, like you said, um, the advanced superpower mode versus like, I just need to like a simple prompt and a simple response. Yeah.
We'll see though. I mean, if we look at the like compressing of timelines in M&E and the compressing of budgets, um, anything that someone can do to make themselves more productive in a way, and hopefully, it doesn't become well, you're being just asked to do more than you can possibly do, and so you've got to have these AI agents pick up the slack. Hopefully, it's I can focus on the work that I want to work on and let some of the grunt work go aside. But I think that there's going to be a transitional period that we may be in right now where we're
Hey,
figuring that
wait a
stuff out.
minute. You actually have a job that doesn't ask you to do more than you can possibly do? Does something like that exist?
I mean, no comment.
Uh,
Cut this out. We're cutting this part of the podcast
all
out. We're
right,
not putting that anywhere. All right.
let's go down
Pause here.
let's go
To
down a
pause here.
generation. Let's go down a generation and get Olivier's opinion, right?
I it's a good question. I think we'll have a hybrid solution. But I think depending on the kind of work, some of the work won't require a UI. It will just be agentic workflow. Some of
Mm.
the work will require some kind of user experience, either from dashboard decision making, but it will be optimized for our needs and our role specifically. So I think that's where the future is going, but we'll still need for a couple of years a traditional user experience, especially for data management, because yeah, it's super complex. And to leverage those AI solutions, the most important part is to provide the data and more importantly, the metadata so that those AI agent can actually do some work and understand what's happening. And not necessarily from an AI perspective, but how are studios using metadata and analytics to make smarter decisions about where their data lives right now? What have you seen?
I think that a lot of studios are
This.
still struggling with that. The one of the more interesting. I was at a conference back in February, and a studio. I wrote there's some blog I wrote online about this because it was pretty interesting. Where they were like, the studio wanted to build their own search engine that would be able to. They didn't have to train it, and we needed to be able to pull out information about novel characters that were not a part of any sort of training data, so that they could do a search for, give me all of the assets related to this particular character, and it would pull it all up. And the way they did this was through this innovative auto tagging where they had, the metadata that was embedded in the file. So like the file name itself and, a time and some other information about that file. And they pulled that into a graph database. And then they had an LLM scan the data as well. And instead of creating like a vector database that's like a black box that you can't really dig into, they actually had it write a text description, and then they indexed on that and combined those two things together. Super interesting stuff. So I think that, you know, pulling that additional metadata and finding the dream of the auto tagging of all of your data is a thing that is now starting to be a real thing.
Well,
But
let me jump in, and I want to try to keep this podcast to a half hour, but this is a topic I could go on for a long time. The end all be all isn't metadata, because it depends on the consistency quality of metadata, and then you need to get metadata from multiple sources, right? The metadata I may need in the file may not actually tell me who the content owner is or what my rights for distribution are, right? This problem started a long time ago. I mean, I'm gonna date myself. 20 years ago, Shell wrote a paper trying to standardize metadata for the capture of geoseismic data. Um, Disney tried to be the 800-pound gorilla, and when you were doing work for them, they actually embedded the metadata in the file name. You'd see name of shell underscore two-letter character for language. Like the metadata itself was embedded in the file name itself. Um, and so it relies on consistent, good quality metadata that is hard to come by from a single source. So I think with AI, it's going to get better and better, and there's going to be ways to cross-validate it so that you're working with good quality metadata, because metadata is just going to be good quality metadata is going to be just as important as good quality data. Because if you start with bad data and or metadata, the outcome is going to be exasperated down on the deliverable end of it. I could go on and on like this, but there's been a number of papers and efforts to try to standardize metadata over the years, which I think are noble efforts. Apple, if you get iTunes, you notice the metadata on anything on iTunes is solid. Like it's pristine. Is that because you cannot get a deliverable through unless it meets a consistent standard. You're never going to click on a song and not be able to figure out who the artist is, or it's going to be spelled different ways. Salt and pepper with an N, salt with an ampersand in the end. Like it's going to be consistent, and I think that's paramount to getting the dream of the promise of metadata. But AI will help. I think this is a phenomenal point that we hadn't even really chatted about, but AI will help bring that level of consistency there that make it much more reliable, believable, and trustable.
And since this is a pre-NAB show, you just need to look out for Paul at NAB and find him in like the chandelier bar at the Cosmo and buy the man a drink, and then you can spend the rest of the night talking about metadata. And there we go.
I'll scare everybody off. If you want to,
They're like, "Whoa, that's that metadata guy again."
If you want an empty, quiet space, that'll be the outcome.
Why is there
of that.
nobody over there? Oh, he was talking about consistent metadata. It went back 20 years to geospatial.
But I'm
a lot smarter now.
I'm going to go one more level, because I think with the ECS and the ability to store metadata as a standard as an S3 object, I think that's going to change the game, and it's going to unlock data that was held hostage by proprietary databases. So that metadata becomes transportable when it's added to the file or object itself, right? So I send you a file and along comes the metadata. Who's the content owner? What are my distribution rights? Like, I think the ECS platform is a very robust way to, you go to great lengths to get the quality of the metadata. You go to great lengths to clean it up. You certainly don't want to lose it if you start to try to transport the object, right?
Yeah, now you mentioned ECS a couple times. This is Dell's object storage platform, actually now renamed Object Scale. So this is the next gen of ECS. This is, it allows you to embed metadata right along with your objects. And in fact, we could do that with file data too on the PowerScale platform. And so I think that that's really like being able to have these self-describing files and objects so that, yeah, you might want to extract that metadata and put it into a database for efficient querying. Like, yeah, that makes a ton of sense, but you definitely want that metadata to travel along with your file. To your point about like, iTunes or Apple Music now, that the metadata is just embedded with the file. I just get it and it's there. And right, certainly, the application is reading that embedded metadata and storing it in a database so that you can query it really fast. But like at the end of the day, the metadata is still in the file, and that I think is that is a technique that I think is. I mean, we've been
Yeah, and
talking about it for years, but it needs to be talked about some more.
you
Yeah.
can vectorize it as all you want, but it's probably not embedded in the file, right? The distribution rights or any contractual terms associated, probably not embedded in the file unless somebody comes up with a clever way to watermark that into the file. Like, so you still need to aggregate it from multiple sources. Anyway, yeah,
Moving on from metadata.
you guys got to
Yeah.
stop me if we're gonna
All right,
make the
we're
30 minutes.
section break. All right, Paul.
Let's go for another question. Can you walk us through a real example where a studio went from our data is a mess to actually seeing return on investment? It could be on efficiency, getting actually generating revenue with their data, or any other example that you have.
Oh yeah, I mean, as soon as you grab an index of their file system, there's a fingerprint all over it of the pipeline. So you can see stuff like, there's going to be ephemeral data that gives you an immediate ROI. Like, I want to keep my production line with only good product running down the production line. So you get failed transfers, you get cache files, you get all this other stuff that does not wind up as part of the deliverable. And this starts lingering around there forever. So just quickly finding that and cleaning that up, makes room, gives you more production capacity. At the end of the day, you can put more product down your production line again. I think that's a fairly easy one right out of the gate.
Yeah,
I
I've seen also like just a global search engine. You can save a lot of time having a global search engine that can access all your data, even if it's scattered in different location. Uh, I don't think we are estimated properly the time people are wasting finding data.
oh yeah, I mean, Google published a paper of this probably 2009 when they came out with the Google search appliance. Um, yeah, and one of the key metrics in there was the amount of time that knowledge talent spent looking for the right data. I think the problem has just gotten worse. It's still there. It's still gotten worse. To reiterate what you're saying there, Olivier. Also, I started the day with, how does your day go sideways? Remember, your content, especially with the consumer economy and all of that, like, content is being generated so quick with short deliverables and multiple formats. Like, any little delay is going to impact the outgoing, the end product, which could be directly tied to revenue. Like, this product has to be out by this time or it's going to have a revenue impact. Used to be like, hey, we got to make the Thanksgiving release date for a theatrical movie. Hey, we've got to make the Christmas release date. And if you missed it, you missed a big window of when people go to the opportunities or, go to the movies, or big revenue driving dates. So to kind of put that back into time, into time perspective, time is money, right? People say that. So my day goes sideways. Well, how does that really go sideways? Well, there's an IT ticket, an engineer gets involved. There's a delay can ultimately have that revenue impact at the tail end of it. So anything along those lines to reduce anomalies, exception handling, and I think that's true with any type of production line.
I think, Joe, you want the analogy that comes to my mind right here. We'll see if this makes any sense when I actually say it out loud, but is that the process when the data is a mess is like a Rube Goldberg machine. You guys know what a Rube Goldberg machine is, right? It's where you have the like super complicated set of things, to like make some toast or something, right? And instead of having this like super complicated set, which to your point with like lots of dependencies and everything can break, if you can just make it like a conveyor belt that's just like going along, a factory or something, an assembly line that is just way simpler, that you're just doing what you need to do to accomplish your task, and you don't have all these extra steps in between because you don't know where things are and the data is a mess and there's not enough room on the file system because, to your point, there's all these temp files that are clogging up space that have been sitting around for who knows how long. This is where I think intelligent systems can start to handle it. I mean, on the other hand, the thing I like to point out is that humans are involved in this and humans are messy. Um, and they are going to store things like duplicates of files all over the place. That's going to happen. And certainly you can have tools to try and reduce that. Or maybe you want to make sure that your storage system does deduplication as like a either inline or post process at the end to just, deduplicate all that. So yeah, it's fine that like, Greg down the hall has his own special copies of all these files in his own, shared folder, but whatever. It's it's all been deduped anyway, so it's not really his own special copy, even though he thinks it is. So I think that those are just things to keep in mind as we're looking forward to how we can straighten out data and create that ROI.
And you described a problem that a storage system is very well suited to handle in terms of um, deduplication of blocks of data. Because even if I've got two copies, I may have two permission schemes on that. So because I have different security around it or governing that, I literally just left a meeting where this is a problem with Frame.io. Like it's a collaborative a platform for storing data and approval processes, but along with it come a different set of permissions. You're view only. Oh, you can download the thing, right? Well, it could be the same file, but it's got a different set of permission schemas on it. That where like an intelligence storage system, if it just compresses it and dedupes it behind the scenes, I don't mess with any of the governance around why there may be two copies.
Right. That's handled at a file system layer, a totally
Yep.
different, that's an interesting yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need that handled at the storage system layer, not higher up so that you can maintain the separation. That's really interesting. Yeah.
Absolutely, unless it's something that's stuck in the process, right? It goes from this station to that station. It made it to that station, but a copy got left at the previous station. Like that's an easier one, right? But if duplications are met and for or often created for a collaborative um, purposes, it's usually because it's got different permissions and security schemas around it.
Okay. So one last question for you guys. What's one thing you wish every media and entertainment data manager knew that most don't?
So those guys are way smarter than me to begin with. So there's that. But when we were preparing for this podcast, I thought, Paul, you had a really good answer for this that we've already kind of touched on a little bit. If you wanted to, if you remember what you had said when we were chatting earlier
Well,
around.
here's where my generational age comes in, and I don't remember.
All right, well then I'm gonna answer for you because it was a good one,
Okay,
and that is
let's do it.
around uh, that is around the embedded metadata in your file or object, right? That these file systems are able to do this. So, for instance, PowerScale storage based on OneFS, it's been around. It's a very mature platform, has a giant space for shoving metadata associated with files Object Scale or object storage in general has, a very robust system for associating metadata with the file so that you don't necessarily need to be locked into a proprietary database solution or whatever that solution is. Your metadata can travel with those files if you do it right. And so that's a good thing to that they should understand. And when you're evaluating all this stuff and how it might impact your workflow, like can I embed that metadata? That would be the thing that I don't think a whole lot of people are as familiar with. Certainly not at the data management,
So
and
I'm
M&E anyway.
yeah, I'm a rookie at this podcast, but I wish there was a way. Can I have a show of hands if you've got a bucket of data that's being held hostage because of the metadata, right? I can't get my data because I also need the metadata, and because the metadata is locked in some proprietary database. Like, I don't even think we need.
Yeah.
I
I have some
if I
example
were,
in mind.
yeah, if we were going to Vegas and I could place a bet on that, and that that would be more than some amount of people or some percentage, I would take that bet.
So this is, I mean, taking us back to the bar metaphor. So first he's cleared out the bar because he's the guy talking about metadata, and then he goes up to the roulette wheel and he's like, "All right, we're gonna forget about this. We're gonna bet on metadata." All of a sudden, we
Yes,
see
please.
Paul getting escorted from the casino yet again, be like, "Oh well, the metadata guy." But
There's no sports book for metadata. Come on, I like those odds.
I believe it's called, what is it? It's called event contracts or something like that. So you can bet on anything, right? So anyway, but there he goes.
I have a recommendation also. I think for the future, especially with AI, you need a way to catalog everything you have. You need a way to let agents have access to your data in a secure way. So yeah, you need something that can interact with AI solution so you can potentially automate the boring stuff and accelerate your work. That's my
Yeah,
recommendation.
I agree with your recommendation, and the answer is the AI agent has permissions wide open. That's not the answer. But that used
Careful
to
with
be an
that.
that used to be an Autodesk requirement, right? I'm running a flame and it runs as root.
Shabbat 777, go. Don't do that.
Yeah,
All
but
right.
I
Well,
100% agree with you, Olivier. AI with guardrails.
Great. So that concludes our podcast for today. Thank you guys for answering all my question, and I hope we can chat in person at NAB to continue this
yeah, no,
conversation.
great to spend a little bit of time with you guys and everybody out there. Come find us over in the North Hall, the Dell booth. Love to continue these conversations and go from there.
I'll
And
either be in
yeah.
the Dell booth or the Metadata Sportsbook.
Oh, the metadata sportsbook, the mythical metadata sportsbook. There we go. I love it. All right, take it easy, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Let's see.